Welcome back to another tutoring video. Today we're going to do converting fractions to decimals, and it's really straightforward, but I would recommend watching my long division videos if you struggle with long division, because we're going to need to use that a little bit in this video. So the first question is asking, how can we convert 1 over 10 into a decimal? Now, the first thing you have to understand about decimals is decimal places. So let's just write out a random decimal number like this. I'm just going to write down a few zeros. So basically, the first digit to the right of the decimal place is referred to as the tenths column. The second number away from the decimal is called the hundredths column. The third number away is the thousandths column. The fourth number away is the 10,000ths. And the fifth number away is the 100,000ths. The sixth number away is the millionths, and so on and so forth. So it's important to memorize that and understand that. So if we wanted to convert 1 over 10 into a decimal, basically, we're going to have to write the numerator, which is 1, in the tenths place behind the decimal. So since the tenths place is the first number to the right of the decimal, the answer to this question is going to be 1 over 10 is equal to 0.1, because we just wrote the numerator in the column where the denominator indicates. So if we wanted to convert 1 over 10,000 into a decimal, all we would have to do is put the number 1 in the 10,000ths decimal place. So let's figure out what the 10,000ths decimal place is. We have 0, then our decimal, and then the tenths column, the hundredths column, the thousandths column, and then the next number is the 10,000ths place. So that's where we're going to put the numerator. So the answer is going to be 1 over 10,000 is equal to 0.0001. So now we're going to do a problem which shows us how we should actually convert a fraction into a decimal, and that is actually by using long division, which is where that last video comes in. So notice how 11 is not a multiple of 10 or 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 like the last two problems. So we're going to have to use long division in order to convert this fraction into a decimal. So basically what we're going to do in order to convert this fraction into a decimal is we're going to divide 7 by 11. So another way we can write that, you might remember from the last long division video, is just like this. But the trick is we're going to have to write our long division statement with a bunch of decimal places behind the 7, which is our numerator. And the amount of decimal places that you add behind the number is how many decimal places you're going to be able to find. So the first step in order to doing this long division with the decimal places behind the 7 is actually to write a decimal place in your answer in the exact same spot as your numerator. And we can write a 0 in front of this. Since we're finding a decimal, the decimal is always going to be 0 point something, right? So now what we have to do is we have to multiply 11, which is our denominator, by 0, which follows the exact same steps as we discussed in the long division videos. So 11 multiplied by 0 is obviously 0. And 7 minus 0 is equal to 7. And since we just subtracted two numbers, we have to bring down the next digit, which is 0. Now the next step is figuring out how many times does 11 go into 70, and the answer is 6. Because 11 times 7 is 77, which is too big. So 11 times 6 is 66, which we want to write down underneath that number and subtract them. So now we get 70 minus 66, which is 4. And since we just subtracted two numbers, we want to bring down the next digit, which is 0. So now we ask ourselves, how many times does 11 go into 40? And the answer is 3 times, because 11 times 4 is 44, which is too big. So 11 times 3 is 33. Okay, so then we have 40 minus 33, which is 7. And since we subtracted two numbers, we bring down the next digit, which is 0. And then we ask ourselves, how many times does 11 go into 70, which is 6? We already did that in this problem. And that's going to be our final answer. And how it works is, if you write down more zeros, that is how precise your decimal is going to be. So since we only wrote out 3 decimal places in the numerator, we only got an answer of 3 decimal places. So if you wanted more decimal places, all you would have to do is just keep adding more zeros. And it's also important to remember that this approach works for any problem where you want to convert fractions into decimals. All you have to do is use long division. But anyways, I hope this video was helpful, and let me know in the comments if you have any questions or concerns, and I will see you in the next one.